Greetings, travelers.
Greetings, travelers in Jump Scare June.
Yeah, I like that. So
Yes, it was much more
we should,
calm than I normally am, as I know. So,
for Jump Scare June, we should just randomly go "Bah!" like that into the. That at the very least will keep Beau awake while she's editing the episode.
well, Bo will wonder if it's an EVP. That's the
Oh man,
dangerous
yeah. When
part
we
of it.
had the Wild and Weird Radio guys, speaking of West Virginia, we had the Wild and Weird Radio West Virginia guys on, Ron and Joe, and we had some odd stuff come through.
Yeah,
It could be simple electronic interference. We're all mountain internet, all of us are various things, and it could have been simple as that. But there was one that I swear was a hello, hello, somebody trying to reach through to talk to us.
yeah. It's funny because I feel like we could almost do an entire episode of just EVPs from that episode because that's how
Sure.
many there were. So something around those guys. I'm just saying.
Yeah, they are an odd pair, but we love them. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely Wild and Weird Radio, West Virginia gang. You can find it
absolutely.
on your favorite podcasting app, just like us.
Yes, definitely check them. They're amazing. I love them.
Sure.
But this episode's kind of cool because we're on the road to Grafton, so we're going to be at the Grafton Festival. Is this the first time this festival?
First ever, because it is the anniversary coming up. This is going to be June
It's
June
June 15th.
15th, which June 16th, 1964 was the original sighting of this creature. So this is the, was it 60, 70, 24. We're 60th anniversary of this event.
So crazy.
And
Crazy.
the town barely acknowledges it until now. Now they're building a Grafton Monster Museum. I think they saw Flatwoods is building. We saw what happened with Mothman. So hey, we've got our own friend.
I love that these communities, I mean, we came back from Hodag. I love when these communities embrace their weird
Oh man,
because
Hodag, look at that. I mean, look at that town alone. Rhinelander. How many Hodag statues are there? Tons, 30, 40, and all done by local artists. Braxton, even them, they've got the chairs, the Flatwoods Monster chairs. And they're
yeah,
all done by different artists. Can't wait to get back up there for that later this year.
it's exciting. So we get to be a part of the inaugural, did I say that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Um, and aren't we talking at the Grafton?
Yes, we're the opening act. Again,
Hmm.
we're going to be talking about some lesser known cryptids because the Grafton was kind of a lesser known monster too, thanks to Fallout 76 making him a little famous again. But
Well, you know how I feel about Fallout 76.
yeah, they dug deep, and he was one of the ones that we wrote about it in Eerie, Appalachia, and that's what I'm kind of going to go over on this episode a little bit, is about some of my research into it, some other research. I interviewed a recent witness, which a lot of people are surprised by that because this was in 1964. It only happened once. Not when you talk to the people in that area.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we'll get into that as we go. But are you ready to step in the Wayback Machine, Erika?
I am always ready for the most part to step in the Wayback Machine. I know that our amazing Wayback Machine pilot, your wonderful wife, Carrie, has actually been keeping it clean since the state you were leaving the Wayback Machine in was questionable.
We've had some guests in the Wayback Machine, so we've had to finally clean it up a little bit. So,
Yes, so
all
it's
right.
exciting. Let's go. Where are we going?
All right. So, we are going to the town of Grafton, and we're going to go back to the late 1800s. So, we're going way back a little bit.
Okay.
And basically, two railroads come through this
Oh,
Baltimore and Ohio railroads, and they just happened to meet in the town of Grafton, which blew up the town, right? That makes this in the middle of the mountains of West Virginia explodes. But this is actually, yeah, right after Civil War. Business is growing. It did kind of make living there a little difficult because there were a lot of factories and railroads. So there's a lot of smoke. So people tend to fall by the wayside and leave the town. So it starts going into a deterioration, particularly around the 1940s. By the end of the 1940s, the Car China plant and the Hazel Atlas glass plant closed their doors in the late 1950s, which left 90% of the town out of work.
Oh, wow.
And in the 1960s, though, the town starts rallying. The railroads have kind of moved on. Some other things, the businesses have moved on. So they're trying to bring industry back, right? They're trying to do all this stuff. It's not far from the interstate now. So it won in 1962. It wins an award, the National Civic League's All American City. The town is recovering. Now, one of
Okay.
the most famous things about this town was it was the town that invented Mother's Day.
Grafton is the town that invented Mother's Day?
Yes. And
Wait, what? How do you invent a holiday? I think I'm not even clear on that.
so Mountain Mama, Take Me Home Country Roads, right?
Yeah.
That is because it's the home of Mother's Day. So in 1908, Anna Jarvis, she wants to do a holiday in memory of her own mother, Anna Reeves Jarvis. And she had lost 8 of her 12 children.
Okay.
And so she dedicated her life to eradicating childhood disease. So she
Oh.
organized a thing called Mother's Day work clubs to help buy medicine for needy families and to help take care of those stricken with tuberculosis.
Oh.
Now, during the Civil War, they also cared for wounded soldiers from the Union and Confederate armies. And then after the war ended, she organized Mother's Friendship Day to bring veterans from both sides together. And then 1905, she started trying to just get her mother commemorated. So became the first observance of Mother's Day in 1908 at the St. Andrew's Methodist Episcopal Church in Grafton, honored her mother and all mothers. And so in 1914, President Woodrow Wilson made the holiday official.
I love all of that story, and that warms my heart.
Well, good, good. So I'm glad I could pull that up for you. And that was from westvirginiatourism.com.
Wow.
I'm credit for
Very
that one
cool.
because I did not know most of that myself. I knew a little bit about it, but not a lot of it.
Look at us learning things.
Learning all the things.
Learning all the things.
All right. So now we go. Moving on. 1962, the town is kind of coming back, right?
Yeah.
Now we're taking the Wayback Machine to that fateful night in 1964.
Okay.
June 16th, late night. Reporter Robert Cockrell, and he was driving home from a late night working at the local paper. He made this trip every day. And he passed one turn and began to head down a particularly dark stretch of road that goes through the woods near his house. And he notices what he thought was suddenly a large boulder blocking the right side of the road.
Okay.
And he hadn't seen a rock slide or anything in the area earlier that day or ever. He drives that road frequently. So he was kind of curious, where the hell did this boulder come from? There's not even one on this hill. And then he realized it's moving. The boulder was alive.
Oh, I don't love that. No.
Had to be some huge beast about 8 feet tall,
Way too big.
right?
Yeah.
And it's large width and seems super muscular when he starts looking at it. And either the head is sunken in, small, or even missing. It's covered in a slick like skin. He described it like a wet seal. And it could just be albino or very pale skin, but he thought it seemed like a light fur over it. And the giant beast kind of shambles out of his way. And what would you do, Erika, at this point?
Run.
Yep, he takes advantage of that, speeds out of the way, goes home, doesn't even think about it, just done. Don't want to look back.
I wouldn't either.
So he's basically unable to come to grips with it, right? What the hell had I seen?
Yeah.
So he starts to type up an account for his newspaper, the Grafton Sentinel. And then he calls some friends and says, "Hey, I'm writing this report. I saw something weird." And they suggest to him, "Well, let's go find it. Picture would be great, right?"
What? Who are these friends that are like, you know what would be a really good plan? Let's go chase down this gigantic monster. I don't understand that.
I mean, if I'm out in the woods and I'm up in the mountains and somebody says, "Hey, I saw something weird," you know me, I'm immediately like, "Well, let's go get a picture." I would also be like, "Let's go kill it." But back then, I would have been, if I'm a mountain boy, I'm really like, I'm bringing my gun. We're gonna get this guy. So I'm sure that was what the conversation was. So
We're gonna get this guy. I like it.
I think that's exactly what that is. It's probably a bear. Let's get him. So they go out to the spot, right?
Yeah.
They hunt for a little while and they hear this strange whistling that seems to
Okay.
kind of come from all around them. They described it as a very haunting tune. They didn't see the creature, but they did see signs of crushed grass in the area,
Oh,
which would have been probably footprints. So after the few hours, Cockrell, they can't find anything. The whistling stops, and Cockrell decides, that's it. I'm done. I'm not publishing this. There's nothing here, right? And the boys all go home disappointed. And a few days later, though, he decides, you know what? I'm going to print this because I saw something weird and I want to know if anybody else has seen anything like it. According to him, he honestly thought nobody'd even read the story, but he had secretly hoped that someone else had seen it and might bring forth more witnesses. What he did not
makes sense.
expect was what happened next, because basically he caused a frenzy. The town was flooded with hunters and gangs of armed men hoping to capture the creature. And most were covered with weapons and they just charge off into the woods.
Like you do.
There's a few close calls immediately with shots fired, and the sheriff calls the Grafton Sentinel and says, "You have to print a retraction or something bad is going to go down."
Wow.
So we're going to go a week ahead now. It's been a week of madness now. So the article on June 19th of the Grafton Sentinel, I'm going to read this to y'all right here. Grafton's alleged, quote, monster, reportedly the personification of the active imaginations of a number of teenagers, couldn't have shown up in the Riverside Drive area even if it wanted to on Thursday night. Too many teenagers and adults were roaming that section of the city. At approximately 10 p.m., it was reported that cars were almost bumper to bumper along the river, and a large number of cars were pulled off the road to permit joining in the area's most popular event in recent years, monster hunting. Some 20 reports from persons allegedly seeing the monster have been quoted since Tuesday night, when the all-white creature without a discernible head was reported seen near the city rock quarry. Wednesday night, about 30 teenagers engaged in a monster hunt, but by Thursday night, the number of teenagers had doubled and even more adults joined in the action.
So they're doing a giant. Can we just pretend like this isn't happening because we're getting too much crap?
Right, 100%.
Got it.
So
Okay.
after the article runs, the police start chasing away the crowd. It slowed the hunters and the frenzy about Grafton for a while. And Cockrell was very pleased, though, that other witnesses came forward and corroborated his story. So, hey, this is great. And
Yeah.
almost every encounter described the creature as 8 to 10 feet tall. They described it as white or gray in color. They all described how thick and muscular the creature was, how methodical it moved, and almost every sighting described a sunken or non-existent head. And some reports actually mentioned that they'd seen it many times over the years, but never told anybody. Because why? Because people would think they were crazy.
That's understandable. I mean, this thing was huge, right?
Mm-hmm. 8 to
So
10 feet tall, larger than a bear, big, bulky, crazy thing. Now we've talked about down here, people have seen, they call him the silverback Sasquatch, right? In our North Carolina area, the
Yeah.
gray Sasquatches. I think this sounds like that a little bit, but with the sunken head or kind of, crouched in head where it's even with the shoulders. That sounds like our other friend who lives in West Virginia, right? The one that
Yeah.
flies around Point Pleasant. It has a sunken in head in all the original descriptions.
Do you think the coloration, so that's what's kind of got me a little thrown off about it, is the sunken in head, but the colors are weird. What do you think
Yeah,
that's
it's
from?
albino, or something, or gray. The seal skin is what throws me. It's when they describe it as wet and slick.
Yeah.
So that makes me think it might be something that lives in that creek down there, that Riverside Drive. It's right in the river, almost Loveland Frogman, right? Something
Yeah.
that lives in the water that comes out. Maybe it's more fish scale. Sometimes those fish scales look like fur when you get them out of the water, things like that. That's where we get those stories of fish with fur on it. As with Mothman and these other strange creatures, some people start talking about seeing strange lights in the sky
Oh,
and UFO phenomena around the same time as Grafton monsters blowing up. So Cockrell reaches out to a local UFO expert, which is Gray Barker. We've talked about Gray Barker a few times on this. Barker was a guy who did post some fake stuff, but he also was like John Keel. He was boots on the ground. He was there, so he got witnesses. The Gray Barker collection is one of those amazing, wonderful collections available in West Virginia to peruse. Our friends from the Moth Boys put together a collection from it, which I do love, which is a quote from Gray Barker: "UFO is a bucket of shit." and, but Gray Barker himself was kind of an oddball character. He's like John Keel, where he was just reporting the stories, right?
yeah.
Now, one of the encounters that they interviewed, they witnessed together. Cockrell and Gray Barker interview a bunch of witnesses. They talked to a man who saw the creature early in the morning, and he ran to his truck. And then when he turned and looked back, he saw the creature had run into the trees. And quote, "I heard a whooshing sound and a bright light appeared above the tree line." And he added that he did not go back for his fishing gear for 2 days. So as the Erika move.
He noped out. I appreciate that. I appreciate the noping.
Police report comes out.
Yes.
They have come to a conclusion with their investigation.
Okay.
It was a hoax. Cockrell misidentified a man pushing a wheelbarrow filled with boxes. And all the other sightings were spring fever, quote, and overactive imagination. And it died down immediately. Now, Barker,
Wow.
however, was convinced that the monster was linked to the UFO activity that was being reported in the area. So he wrote a lengthy article on it, but it never got printed. It's in the Gray Barker collection, which is in the Clarksburg Harrison Public Library in West Virginia. So Barker is basically infamous because he also coined the term Men in Black. He did create a couple fictional documents, but if he was creating another fictional story with the Grafton monster, why did he not publish that story? He published a lot of other things. So why did he keep this one just in his papers and never run it? Now, Cockrell, in later years, recanted his account
Oh, wow.
after saying it was authentic for almost his entire life. And so, because of this, between that and Barker's involvement, many people said, all right, it's a hoax, just a hoax. But to this day, there are families in the area who talk of sightings that predate Cockrell's initial article. And then some talk about it after. And as someone who has their own holler monster in our family, this reminds me of that, right?
Yeah.
Things. Now, one of my favorite recent encounters. Now, once I was announced I was doing Eerie Appalachia and I started reaching out to people and all this, one person emailed me and said, "Hey, I think I saw the Grafton monster. I don't know if you know about that one." And Grafton monster was still relatively obscure. But again, Fallout 76 kind of was fixing that, which is for those who don't know what that is, it's a video game in the popular Fallout series, which now has an Amazon TV show that took
Yeah.
place in West Virginia, and they added the West Virginia cryptids as radioactive wasteland monsters that you could fight.
Yeah.
And Grafton,
Fallout 76, the premise is people went into vaults because there was a nuclear situation, right? There were some people left above, which that's a whole other topic we can get into. But the idea is you come out of this vault that's been sealed for hundreds of years and you come into this now wasteland where nature, these cryptids, these kind of things have taken back the land. And I have to say, with the Grafton monster, that may be one of my favorite things because you go to the town of Grafton that's still standing. And at a certain time, they have Grafton Day, I think it is. And during that particular festival, this monster comes out and kicks the crap out of you. It is one of the harder creatures in the game, and it's not 8 feet tall. This thing's like the size of a building.
it's a hulking brute. Now, the interview I got with the gentleman, he messaged me and said, "Hey, I think I saw the Grafton monster. I was out jogging one morning on the hill. He wasn't in Grafton, but he's pretty close, right? He's just one of those little outlying farms.
Yeah.
And he jogs it every morning. And he was out there and he saw what he thought at first was an albino Bigfoot up on a hill. And being a believer and a student of this, he immediately stops and looks closer. He's trying not to make any noise because he's trying to get his phone out, take a picture or a video even.
Yeah.
And he's pulling out his phone. It's been, on his Spotify or whatever, listening to music. He is switching the phone over as he's watching it, and it lumbers. He said it had two big long arms, and it looked like a giant wet rock that was walking. Had eyes like the Mothman, he said. It was like two big red eyes where its shoulders were. As he gets the camera switched over, it walked into a tree, like behind the tree, and didn't come back. He's like, this 10-foot thing walks behind. It was a good sized tree, but not as wide as this thing, but it disappeared.
So what do you think on that? Is that like one of the things we talked about on the dimension shifting and stuff?
That's immediately where I go with that. I'm thinking Fey or dimensional shift or something. And when I spoke to him further about, I was like, was there any flash? Was there anything like that? He did say earlier in the morning he had saw a green flash, then he thought maybe it was a meteor or something like that. And this is early morning jogging. So
Wow.
it was just coming up when he saw this.
I love that.
This was a daylight sighting. So there's no confusion of what it
Yeah,
was.
there's no like it was reflective lights off of a
He
whatever.
thought it was a crouched Bigfoot. And then when it stood up, he realized it didn't have a head. And when it turned, he saw red eyes kind of looking down at him. And that's when he's got the camera, but it didn't have time to get to it. He's like, it was gone in the blink of an eye. And that happens to so many of our stories, right? We hear
Yeah.
that so much that you're initially shocked. So you've got to go that few seconds reaction time before you can think, oh, I need to record this. Do I need to run? Do I need to protect myself? Your brain has to think through these things before you go, oh, I'll get my camera out. Right.
Yeah, no, totally. And usually these things aren't standing there waiting to be filmed.
No, they're not going to sit still. He's like, I guess it hurt him because that's why it stood up. And he's like, he noticed the motion on the ridge line above him. And that shook him to his core. And he's convinced that Grafton is still there. And he thinks it's a wood spirit. That was his thought, that this was some creature of the woods, but he's a very spiritual guy. I've talked to him a couple times since. So I'm trying to get him on the show, but he's not ready to quite come forward 100% publicly yet. So
No, I can understand that, but I don't know about the wood spirit thing. Like that doesn't sound right to me. What about you?
I don't know. It's an odd story. Every appearance of it has been interesting. Like somebody has described it as bulky, but very methodical. That is always the word that comes up. It's like when people talk about the Ohio Grassman, they talk about his rock star hair. I think this one is the word methodicals, keeps coming back up in
Wow.
multiple interviews over the years. Not even just Gray Barker's, but in some of the ones from the 70s, that there were only a couple in the 70s and 80s that have ever come out, but even they talk about its methodical movement. I wonder what that means. When I talked to this guy, he said it seemed like it was standing up and took very deliberate steps. His word was deliberate steps.
Interesting. That's so bizarre. It's so bizarre, but this thing has got to be out there. So many people have seen it. So whatever these things, because who knows, maybe it's 60 years
I'm
old.
hoping he comes to the festival and is willing to talk to us, because I'm trying to get him to talk to some of the other experts that will be there at the Grafton Monster Festival. But I think when we come back from our break, which we're going to have to take here shortly, I want to talk about some other odd places that you can visit on the way to Grafton. And then we'll come back with one last Grafton Monster story at the end.
I love that. I love that, because your places are not going to be terrifying at all. So I can't wait.
Some are,
So,
some aren't. I think it's just going to be interesting stuff you can hit on the way.
wonderful. Okay, we'll be right back after this word from our sponsor.
The sweltering heat of the Florida sun breaks as a chill runs down your spine. A dark shadow looms from a nearby tourist trap. You didn't expect to find this kind of shade in Florida. If only there was some sort of travel guide to steer you through the spookier locales. Well, you're in luck, reader. Join author Mark Muncy and Carrie Schultz as they lead you through the darkest locations in the Sunshine State in creepy Florida. Available from History Press and at fine bookstores everywhere.
Prepare to be devoured. The Wolves of Wharton is a 6-part complete book series by Eerie Travels producer Beau Lake. It has been called dark and visceral, steamy, dramatic, and a fresh take on the werewolf mythos. If you like action, adventure, a large serving of body horror, and some steamy relations, the Wolves of Wharton series is for you. Pick it up wherever books are sold, or at linktree.com/Beau__Lake.
We're back.
We're going to get back to Grafton Monster here in a bit, but I wanted to talk about a few places that are just really, really cool in West Virginia that are all within a few short hours. We've got Mothman. We all know Point Pleasant, right? You can go to the Mothman Museum. You can go see all that. We talked about Flatwoods. You can go to Braxton counties in Sutton, and you can go to the Flatwoods Museum. There's the Bigfoot Museum there. That town's embracing its weird. We love it.
Yes.
But there's a few other places you can go visit that are worth your time. You have to call ahead to a few of these places. So if you're planning your trip to Grafton, now's the time to call these places. Or maybe if you're coming up to Flatwoods or Mothman, plan ahead and call these places to see if you can go. Because these aren't places like Disney that are open 24/7, you know, whatever. But even Disney World, you want to use your app to reserve your time. But so just think like that. So first one I want to talk about is a place I know I can never get Erika to go.
Yeah,
probably. And
probably.
that is the Lake Shawnee Amusement Park.
Ooh, what is that?
Okay. So we're going to go back in the Wayback Machine for a minute for this.
Okay.
Up until 1783, this area is basically all Native Americans, right? Indigenous. So a European family decides to settle in this area in Mercer County.
Okay.
And guess what?
What?
It causes disturbances with the locals, right? If you get some people who move into your backyard and build a settlement, you're going to be a little upset, right?
Probably, yes.
So basically, a guy named Mitchell Clay He's kind of the head of this European settling family. They're out hunting, and his youngest son is murdered while he's out. And
What?
they blame it on the Native Americans. And then his daughter is knifed to death, and his eldest son is burnt alive.
Oh my gosh.
He blames it all on the Native Americans. So he kills several of them in retaliation, in revenge. He doesn't stay there long, but he keeps the land.
Okay.
So we now go back to the 1920s, so a couple centuries later here, right? And a guy named Conley T. Snidow
Well,
purchases,
that's a name.
yeah, he purchases Clay's land and builds an amusement park on it.
Oh. Huh.
Now, we've already had tribal massacre, we've had some strange deaths on it. Within a short period of time, a little girl dies on the swing at the park. And then they have a swimming pool and a little boy drowns.
Wow.
So they close the park. Right?
I don't love any of this.
4 more people die, various accidents around the park before it's finally abandoned. Now the rides and everything are still there, left to decay and be controlled by the nature, right? Reclaiming this site. What's happened is the family that owns it now was trying to restore it, right? People were coming, taking pictures and all that. They were going to make it a mudding site where, you could ATV and make it more like an extreme sports area, as they were clearing off certain areas, like where the old pond used to be and all that. But they started finding artifacts, native artifacts. So they had to pretty much shut that down almost immediately. But what they do now is, because people see so many ghosts and so many paranormal occurrences happen there, they allow you to come and do ghost hunts on the property.
Okay.
Walk out amongst these old abandoned theme park things and do your ghost hunts with your team. So we will put the link to where you can reserve it and call ahead and come out there and experience this amazing place.
So you can go to this very ridiculously haunted place and subject yourself to this because, yeah, no. I have the feeling we're going to end up going there, but I'm not a fan.
All right. So
Already not a fan.
All right. So next place is in Thurmond, West Virginia, which is an interesting place because it's a ghost town.
Okay.
Until 1921, there were no roads to Thurmond, but a single rail line that basically ties it into the rest of the world. But by the time the rail line was completed, most of the people had already moved out. There was a prison there that was divided into 4 sections. And I love the names of these sections. One was the Alamo, which is where the most ruthless inmates were sent. The main line, which is where everybody basically was. Then there was Rat Row, which was for the heightened protection of snitches and people who had done that. And then there was Honor Hall for those that were honorable and trusted. They were basically the white collar criminals. And the penitentiary witnessed 92 executions, 83 by hanging and 9 by electrocution. Now,
wow.
Again, this area is an abandoned ghost town, but prison compound area, guess what lives there?
I don't want to know what lives there, but okay. So you really want me to guess?
Take a guess. What's your favorite guy who dates the lady in white?
Oh, the Hat Man? They think the Hat Man lives there?
I think they've seen him there a few times. The Shadow Man or the Hat Man, a few other spirits, and ghost chasers love going to this town and exploring.
So when did it get totally abandoned?
In the 1920s, but the prison was open a little while later.
So. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep. But the town was mostly empty except for people working for the prison.
Got it.
Okay. Greenbrier Resort. That's in White Sulphur Springs.
Okay.
And up until 1992, there was something there called Project X.
Oh, that doesn't sound ominous or anything like
And
that.
then Project Casper, like Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Yeah.
And lastly, Project Greek Island.
Well,
And
that's not nearly as much fun sounding.
nope. And this was basically a secret. And guess what it is? Remember we were talking about Fallout?
Is it a shelter?
This is a nuclear shelter that was supposed to protect the entire U.S. Congress. And it is located under the Greenbrier Resort.
Oh, wow.
It was supposed to house Congress and their aides, but their families had to find shelter elsewhere.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So, in order to maintain secrecy, the bunker was maintained by a shell corporation named the Forsyth Associates. And it had basically standard bunk beds, furniture, TV, an incinerator, and a special room for distressed personnel.
Oh, wow.
And they have guided tours weekly. So you can go visit, and it didn't close until 1992. So
What?
one assumes there's a more modern one hidden somewhere else.
I would think so.
All
So
right.
you can go visit that one?
You can, yeah, it's open to the public. You just have to, again, call ahead to make sure you can arrange a tour.
Wow. This sounds like an Eerie Travels like extravaganza.
Right? I mean, this is all just in West Virginia, very
Wow.
close to Grafton.
Well,
All
that
right.
sounds fun. Okay. Where else are we going?
So there's another fun ghost town, Nuttleburg, which is in Fayetteville. John Nuttall was a coal prospector, and he built the Nuttleburg facility and basically built about 100 houses and a large ore refinery added to this town. And again, 1920s, the town's bought by the Ford Motor Company
Okay.
and used the output of the mine to build their facility in Michigan. So they expanded the mine hugely, but in 1928, it had to be closed, most likely because the railroads couldn't make it through there very much.
Yeah.
So completely, mostly abandoned ghost town. And urban explorers love this place, and it has a huge coal flue that goes down from the mountain and all that. Very, very cool place.
Wow. Well, have you been to these places?
I've been to all these places, yes.
Of course you have. Of course
Yeah.
you have.
So one more place I want to put in definitely that if you are a Gravity Falls fan,
I love Gravity Falls.
All right.
I do. So
And
what is Gravity Falls real quick? So anybody who's not.
Gravity Falls is a Disney show that has two kids coming to, was it Oregon, the Pacific Northwest,
Yeah.
Gravity Falls, Oregon. And it's basically Twin Peaks, but for kids. Everything that is a conspiracy theory, cryptid, whatever, they're all there. And these two kids get sucked into adventures. Their great uncle is taking care of them, and I am a great uncle myself, so I appreciate this show on many levels. It is a comedy greatness. Definitely watch it. I believe 3 seasons of awesome. Definitely watch it.
Yes.
Give it a blast. You'll love it. If you're into our spooky stuff, you're gonna love this show. Even it's for adults too. There's a lot of little hidden jokes for adults in it. But anyway, the place they have it at is called the Mystery Shack, right? That's where Grunkle runs his fake cryptids and his fake weird tourist attraction-y hole, which is funny because the real stuff's happening right outside and nobody cares. They like his fake stuff better. So there is a place in Onstead, West Virginia, right near on the New River Gorge, right near the New River Gorge Bridge. And it's called the Mystery Hole. And if you know us, we love roadside attractions and just odd places to stop. So Donald Wilson opened the Mystery Hole to the public in 1973.
Okay.
And there's this underground area under this building. It looks like an airplane hangar that's been painted rainbow colors. And it has a crashed VW bug into the side of it. He says that the area underneath it makes gravity not work.
Oh.
Gravity works weird there. Kind of like our Spook Hill down here down in Florida and all this. So inside chambers are filled with balls and water that go uphill, You stand at a slant when you're supposed to be standing straight. Furniture is on weird surfaces. There is all kinds of crazy stuff there. So he built a gift shop and filled it with strange artwork, and there's a giant gorilla over it. It's amazing. The current owners still run it as though it was like the 1970s. And
Oh my gosh, see, that sounds like something I'd actually have fun at.
yeah, I think you'd have fun at that. And it's got one of the best views of New River Gorge ever. If you don't want to, you can't stop on New River Gorge Bridge. And if you go to the scenic overlook at New River Gorge, it's always packed. Come here to the mystery hole. It's right around the corner, and you will have a blast.
Wow. And we'll put all the links to all these places in our show notes so you guys can have all these places to go travel to.
Yep. So yeah, I've mentioned New River Gorge. That is one of the biggest mega bridges in the world. It's considered a huge challenge for anybody to even drive across that bridge, let alone, do anything else. Every year on the third Saturday of October, you can actually jump off that bridge.
What? Really?
It's bungee jumping or parachuting. They have a bridge jumping day. You can't kill yourself, but people.
Oh yeah, no, don't do that.
When it opened in 77, it connected, the West Virginia Gorge, and it was the longest of its kind suspension bridge in the world, and 876 feet up and 3,030 feet long. And so base jumpers within 2 years, so many people were jumping off of it that they had to give it that day to do it. So 450 base jumpers from all over the nation go there to jump off that bridge. So
wow. Well, I'm not doing that because I don't willingly throw myself off big heights, but if that's something you're into, there you go.
So now we're going to go to a museum.
Okay.
And this is in Moundsville, which is Moundsville Penitentiary's right around the corner. So there is the Archive of the Afterlife. They call themselves the National Museum of the Paranormal, not to be confused with the International Cryptozoology Museum in Somerset, Kentucky. But the Archive of the Afterlife is filled with artifacts related to the history of the paranormal and the afterlife, of course. One of the things there is Old Sparky, which is the electrocution chair used by the state penitentiary. They also have battle damaged relics from World War II. Huge room filled with cursed objects, strange items, and some are more charged than others, according to them. They also have an effigy doll. Their ghost of note is Annie. She has a portrait there that's haunted. But they have examining tables, display caskets, signposts from various funeral homes and cemeteries. It's amazing. Like that one?
I do. I mean, that one sounds creepy, but it sounds really, really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's worth the trip. And Moundsville Penitentiary is another old abandoned penitentiary that has a lot of history. Our Erasmus Shue, the man who caused the Greenbrier ghost, he died in Moundsville, so it's right there too. So.
Oh wow!
All right, one more. We always talk about George Washington slept here is like our ghost. Down in Florida, it's Babe Ruth's ghost haunts here, and everybody up there, George Washington's ghost haunts here. Well, there is a place in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, George Washington's bathtub. So,
what?
Yes, George Washington's bathtub. When he was only 16, he worked as a surveyor's assistant and was frequently in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. He actually eventually even purchased a property in the town, and he kept frequenting it because the bath there was very relaxing. And now, before building modern bathhouses in the 1780s, this was basically a primitive warm spring with a hollowed out trench, and it maintained a constant 72 degrees temperature. And so they lined it with sand and stones, and men and women had separate ones for privacy. But there is a bathtub there. It is not the same one from George Washington's time, sadly, but it is right there. And every year, mid-March, there's a celebration marking the day that the first president visited Berkeley Springs.
Wow.
And the sign, George Washington's bathtub, even though that really isn't his bathtub.
If I was going to haunt someplace, a nice, wonderful bath area is not a horrible place to haunt.
All right. So before we get back to our Grafton monster,
Yes.
we got to talk about Green Bank, which is if you want to get off the grid, right, this is the town for you.
Okay.
Because Green Bank is a little rustic town. It's basically right in the hills of Appalachia. So if you have electromagnetic hyposensitivity, right, where some people have that issue where they can't Wi-Fi or electricity bothers them, stuff like that. They almost sometimes have to move in with the Amish to just protect themselves. This is an area that is true dark sky territory.
Oh.
We did the documentary on the Trail UFOs Dark Skies with Small Town Monsters. This was the area we were talking about because they do not allow Wi-Fi. They do not allow extra lights. It's a dark sky zone because Green Bank is home to the largest fully directional telescope in the world. So
Oh.
communication, fire, radio, police is very strictly regulated because, and they actually have to coordinate it with the scientists who run the research station there. So scientists come there to study the stars. A lot of people come there just because it's National Radio Quiet Zone. You're not going to pick up stray radio signals. You're not going to pick up Wi-Fi signals. It's amazing. So
that would be very bizarre.
There are tons of more places we could talk about. We could talk about the mounds of Moundsville, to Harper's Ferry, all these other fun places. Those are future episodes, gang. We'll get to them at other times. But those are just some of the places that you can visit. I thought those would be fun for our potential trip. If we don't hit them this trip, we'll hit them on future ones. So.
I know we will. And this was like an epic travel episode, travelers out there. Look at all these places. And you have to tell us when you go. Send us pictures besides the blackout area, obviously, but send us pictures. Let us know what you thought.
Okay, so back to Grafton.
We're back. Yes.
Couple quick things. So I had tons of sightings. One of Robert Cockrell's sightings that I'm going to just read a quick quote from was, I saw the monster near the river early in the morning. It saw me and instantly froze. It did not move. I was fishing at the time, left all my gear there, started to run away. As I ran, I saw that it too started running away. I heard the whooshing sound and the bright light, right? We mentioned that one.
Yeah.
Went back, got his gear 2 days later. So here's another one. I have seen the creature called the Grafton Monster several times when I was a young man. It is very real. My first encounter, I was with my father cutting wood. We had finished and were loading the truck when our 2 dogs started barking. We stood there and listened. Something was walking, getting closer. My dad told me to get the gun from the cab, carried a double 10 gauge with double-aught buckshot. Whatever it was, it picked up its pace and continued towards us. All we knew for sure was that it was big and it wasn't scared of us, the dogs, or our chainsaws. It stopped about 50 yards from us in the trees and it went quiet. My dad pulled both hammers back and stood in front of me, told me to be ready. The next thing that happened, I'll never forget. It stepped out, looked at us, took 3 strides in our direction, and then turned and walked back into the tree line. That was my first sighting of the beast. I'll never forget it. My second encounter was 2 months later at night, fishing alone. I spotted him on the opposite bank, and I got the hell out of the area.
Hogan Erika, I appreciate it.
Okay, so 1964. What do you think they said was the Grafton Monster? Besides just imagination. What would have been your
UFO, alien.
Escaped polar bear.
In West Virginia.
In West Virginia. Had to be from some circus. It's always a traveling circus, right?
Always.
And I don't know. I don't think monsters go around pushing wheelbarrows.
No.
I don't think polar bears do either.
No, I would definitely say that is vetoed. Yeah.
Yeah. Our good friends, the Mountain Monsters guys in 2014 did an episode on the Grafton Monster. Highly recommend you all watch that show, just knowing that it's fun. And it's basically less than 3 hours away from Point Pleasant.
It looks like you can do epic traveling. So this has been very fun. I'm a fan of the Grafton Monster. I'm excited for the festival. And with that, Mark, how are you going to take us out this time?
All right, gang. Well, thank you all so much again. As always, please keep on listening. Share us with your friends. Let them know if you're coming up to Grafton, drop us a line. Let us know. We'll look for you. We're happy to see you, or come in, just say hi. We'll be there for the Grafton Monster Festival. We're the opening act, so we'd love to have some travelers in the audience. I'm sure we'll have new ones there, but this is the first year of this event. Imagine being at Mothman Festival first year. Imagine being at the Frogman Festival first year. These are all, they're all getting off the ground. This is one to start, and the anniversary of the event. My gosh, I'm so excited to be part of this. So go to eerietravels.com. You can drop us a line, drop us a listener tale. If you've seen the Grafton Monster or some other strange monster, if you've got a holler monster, I want to know about it. Believe me, that's what it's all about. You can visit us there, drop us an email, mark@eerietravels.com, info@eerietravels.com. And all that said, gang, just get on the road, get out there, travel, go to some of these unique locations. Definitely message ahead. Don't go anywhere you're not invited. And always, always keep your eyes open. Keep that phone ready, because when you're jogging that morning, you may have us on Spotify, but keep your camera open on the side, because you never know what you might see next. It might be the headless horror that is known as the Grafton Monster. And we'll see you on the other side.